Good evening. My name is Matt Kuhn, and I'm the Chief Technology Officer for Thompson School District. I'll be your host tonight for the TSD Technology Community Forum. Tonight we have innovative technology services, learning services, media services, student information systems, and Thompson Connect Online, all together to give you some information about the kinds of technology used for your students. First, here's our agenda. As you can see in the beginning, we're going to be talking about common issues on Chromebooks and iPads. Then we'll go into our learning management systems and a program called Securely Classroom, which helps with behavior management. Next will be iPad management with Jamf School. Then Fuel Ed and Buzz, which are our two online curriculums. Infinite Campus and Parent Portal. Media Services. Information Security. And finally, we will get into the questions and answer section of our presentation tonight. Speaking of the questions and answers, we will be only addressing questions that were about technology. A number of questions came in that were about curriculum or very specific issues to a particular classroom. We will not be addressing those particular issues since this is a wide forum of many participants. If you have questions specific to a particular teacher or a particular classroom, please contact that teacher to have those questions answered. First, let's talk about the technology that our students are issued. We have a number of different kinds of devices in service at the time. We have the iPad 5, 6, and 7 that many of our students have at home now. We also have the Lenovo Chromebook and the Hewlett-Packard G4 through G8, and a new Hewlett-Packard Chromebook called the G1 X360, which is a flip-around Chromebook that turns into a tablet. In some limited cases, there may be an iPad 2 or a Dell Chromebook still out there in service that was checked out last spring, but those are being phased out and replaced with newer devices. Now a little bit more information about our student technology. First, let's talk about iPads. iPads are centrally managed using a software called Jamf. Central management is different than what you might think of as a consumer iPad. In other words, you won't find the App Store on our iPads. That's because we actually push out the apps through a centrally managed system and purchase those through district accounts. We also decide which exact apps will be on the iPads so that students are not distracted by apps that don't have anything to do with their learning. iPads are used in all in-person and on learning situations, except for the secondary or 6th through 12th grade Fuel Ed curriculum, which is being replaced by Chromebooks for Spanish classes. Now let's talk about Chromebooks. Chromebooks are also centrally managed by something called the Google Admin Console. Much like the iPads, this allows us to push out various applications and control what the student is using, so to minimize distractions. They're not set up for consumers. Apps are purchased by the district. They are also used for all in-person and online learning. An interesting feature of the Chromebook is that information is not stored on the Chromebook itself, but on the student's Google Drive, which is a cloud-based storage location. Oops. There we go. All right, now let's talk about teaching and learning software. There are 4 kinds of software TSD uses for teaching and learning. We have our installed software, we have browser extensions, websites, and enterprise software. Software has to be vetted first for its cost benefit, its systems compatibility, and student data privacy compliance. It's important to us to use software that is the best software possible for the money we spend. We don't want students buying their own software, or we don't want software that hasn't been tested to work with our systems. We have over 500 titles in our approved catalog of software, and we have new enterprise level software titles being implemented now. Software accounts. We know that many accounts are created for your students that you may not be aware of. We are trying to minimize the distraction of these many accounts by using something called single sign-on. Single sign-on is when we use a central system to sign on to many different applications so that your student doesn't have to remember lots of different kinds of login credentials. All accounts are actually owned by the school district. They are not owned by the student. We may sometimes say the student's account, but what we really mean is the account that the district has allowed the student to use. This may seem like a small distinction, but it's a big deal. The reason it's a big deal is because legally, if the student owned the account, they would be able to change their own password and they would be able to do with whatever they want to do with that account. But they can't change their own password. They can't load applications associated with that account because it's the district's account, not the student's. We use two main things to achieve single sign-on. One is called Clever, which is used mostly by the younger children with a QR code reader and badge. And the other is called Login with Google, which allows our Google accounts to be the login for many other Google associated applications. Now we're going to talk about some common issues, small technical kind of issues on the Chromebooks and iPads. First, let's talk about issues we find on iPads. Many problems can be cleared up with a hard reboot. This is when you hold down two buttons at the same time until you see the Apple symbol appear on the screen. It's the home button, which is down at the bottom middle of the iPad, and the on-off button, which is in the back right corner of the iPad. If they're held down and pressed at the same time, and you wait a few moments, the Apple symbol will appear on the screen. Then you can let go of the buttons, and the iPad will hard reboot itself. Sometimes a difficult issue that comes up on the iPad is called display zoom. This is when a student accidentally uses their fingers to zoom the iPad in or out too much and can't figure out how to get the iPad back to its regular zoom. To get the iPad back to its regular zoom, double tap the iPad display with 3 fingers. And to keep it from happening, turn off the zoom feature in the iPad settings. Students should periodically close open apps. Too many apps open can really stress out an iPad and make it start to run slow. To close apps, double tap the home screen button down at the bottom middle and swipe up the apps to the top of the screen. This will close them, and this will allow the processor of the iPad to concentrate on the apps that you actually want to use. Finally, if you're having problems with bandwidth or other issues in a video conference, you can turn off your video feed but leave on your mic, and that will reduce the amount of bandwidth you're using. This can reduce the possibility of getting kicked off video conferences. Now let's talk about the Chromebooks. Is your Chromebook running slow? If your Chromebook is running slow, close some tabs, much like closing the apps in iPads, or restart your Chromebook by pressing and holding the refresh button and tapping the power button. Oops, I see my translator turned off. Let me get that going. There we go. All right. Next, browser issues can often be resolved by clearing browser data. Clear cookies and cache by 1. Clicking on 3 dots in the upper right corner, 2. Selecting more tools, and then selecting clear browsing data, selecting cookies and cached images and files, then click clear data button. That will clear out many browser issues that you may have. And lastly, turn off video, much like with the iPad, if you are having bandwidth problems or getting kicked out of video conferences. Now we're going to switch gears and switch presenters. We're going to learn about learning management systems and Securely Classroom.
So Google Classroom is a platform we use for our learning management system. This is what streamlines assignments, boosts collaboration, and helps students collaborate with one another and their teachers. This is where the content delivery comes from the teacher to the student. The nice thing about Google Classroom also is that it seamlessly integrates tools that students and teachers are using, like Docs, Gmail, and the Google Calendar. On the teacher side, it's a place where they can start video meetings or a Google Meet with their students, and it keeps it nice and secure to keep outside people from joining that meet. Teachers can also manage their classes, assignments, and grades all online. They can add assignments, doing apps, videos, surveys and quizzes, other assignments from Drive, or even assessments. They can also have real-time feedback options with their students while the students are working on their assignments. They can post announcements and have question-driven discussions all on the same platform. On the student side, students are able to track their classwork. They can submit assignments. They can see what they have coming up due, what assignments they need to work on. They have an originality report. So if they're getting resources offline, they can check to make sure that they're using their own thinking and not just copy pasting right from the web. They can share resources and interact with the class by stream or by email. Guardians, if they have an email assigned in Infinite Campus, or if the teacher directly invites them, will get an email invitation to their students' Google Classroom. This will give the guardians access to assignments and activities and various posts that the teacher is giving to their class. It'll let the guardians know what work students have coming up and what work they might be missing. On the administrator side of things, we're able to protect data and set permissions for students. So we can make sure that they're focused on their learning as well as protect them from the rest of the wide web. They can set up classes and rosters to make things easier for teachers so that they can focus on their teaching. And we can add or remove students and teachers from classes so that everyone's where they need to be. We also get 24/7 support directly from Google to help us do all this. Securely Classroom sounds similar to Google Classroom because of the title. However, Securely Classroom is more of a behavior management tool. It works on Chromebooks for teachers, and what it does is it allows teachers to monitor what the students are doing while they're online. They can communicate, they can remove distractions, and it helps teachers keep their students focused on their learning. They can push URLs, so if a student has a hard time figuring out what website to go, a teacher can send them directly there and it opens right there on the Chromebook. Teachers can create a collection of websites appropriate for students while blocking everything that might be a distraction. They can also have the option to lock screens. So if a student is being distracted or getting off task, they can lock down that screen to get the student refocused again. Some other controls that teachers have, they have tab control, so they can actually close tabs that might be a distraction on the student's device. They can create custom block lists. So if there's game websites or other inappropriate websites that students are going to, a teacher can go ahead and block those. They're also able to view the students' Chromebooks. They can see what's going on and have better communication with the student to help guide them in their learning. Students can raise their hand electronically to get the teacher's attention, and teachers can make announcements and actually start two-way chats with individual students or the whole class at one time.
iPad management in Jamf School is a Jamf School is a software that we use to uh, basically manage all of the mobile devices, all of the iPads in district. We can keep track of all the devices, who the users are on that device, and what apps they have. We can see the status of the devices very quickly and easily, and we can identify issues for remediation. If we see an issue with an iPad that, for example, requires a restart of the iPad, we can send a remote command to the iPad to restart it that will assist in fixing a lot of problems. We configure multiple schools and multiple locations with our devices so that each location, each school, even down to each grade level and classroom, has specified applications and specified settings for those devices. We could push those settings down remotely, and we can send it to the iPad regardless of where it is in the world, as long as it's on a Wi-Fi connection. With Jamp School Teacher, we gave the teachers a tool so that they're able to manage their class and keep the students focused on their education. They can restrict what apps are actually showing up on the iPad during a particular class period. In doing so, the majority of the apps from the iPad will disappear, and only the apps the teachers want students to use will be available. Same thing with websites. They can only allow the students to go to certain websites. Teachers can request required apps remotely, and when they do so, we can instantly send those apps out and install them remotely. They can also control the students' cameras and how the students communicate with each other. They can lock all the student devices at once. They can send a custom message to the entire class or individual students. They can have an individual conversation via messaging through Jamp School Teacher, and they can take care of most of the problems themselves using Jamp School Teacher. It's a new tool that we just got this year, and it's very effective for learning.
There we go. Thank you, Don. I kind of like how the translator thinks Jamp School is Champ School. That's an interesting translation. All right, we'll go ahead and move now to our next presentation on Fuel Ed and Buzz.
Okay, in Fuel Ed, the teachers can monitor how many students are enrolled. They can see their progress in their classes. They can also view individual student progress. Right now, there is an issue with Fuel Ed and Peak, but they are working on it, so we hope that it will be fixed soon. That is something that is normally there, and it is a very easy tool for teachers to use, and administrators and mentors to just be able to look up a student and see how they're doing in their classes, how much time they've spent in the last week, how far along they are. Students can definitely look in Peak and see how they are doing as well. And even though part of the Peak functions aren't working right now, students can always see up-to-date grades and comments from their teachers and progress. They can see that within their classes in Brightspace. So right now we're telling people if they are having trouble when they first log in, seeing what their progress is, if they just go within their classes and click on grades, then they can get a clear picture of what they've been doing. Also from the dashboard, they can email a teacher They'll get emails from the teachers. There's announcements, all kinds of ways to communicate. So the main ways that we communicate in Fuel Ed is through Brightspace and Peak, which hopefully will be working again soon. So Kim, you can do Buzz.
Good evening. I'm Kim Watchhorn. I am the MTSS coordinator, which is multi-tiered system of supports coordinator in the Thompson School District. And I have been able to support K through really 12th grade activities, but primarily one of the responsibilities is working through some of the Buzz platform and adding users and enrollments. And we have been continuing to do that through the first few weeks of school. So you'll notice that the educators have the opportunity to deliver a curriculum. The FLVS curriculum is what you will see. FLVS will be both on materials and especially on the printable materials. And Buzz is the platform that we use. So you'll often hear the reference to Buzz. It's aligned to learning objectives and standards and competencies, and the teachers will assign assessments. There's a pre-assessment for remodule. There's a getting started for each entry into each course. And so there are individualized tasks, but then that ask for support through navigating each of the screens and the lessons and modules. There are opportunities for different activities, and the teachers will provide ongoing feedback. Students have navigation through the dashboard, and they can check their progress in the gradebook, and there is a to-do list and activity tabs on the home screen. The lessons and learnings are integrated as they kind of progress through. There are actually multiple courses that they're taking. There are 5 courses for each student in the grades K through 5th grade. We did include on the slide a visualization of how to get to the Thompson Connect online website. So if you're asking for information about Thompson Connect online, we'll continue to be updating that website. And you'll see that you can get to it from any tab on the Thompson School District webpage by just clicking on that Return to Learn yellow tab, and it is right there as the second bullet down. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And now we're going to talk about Infinite Campus and Parent Portal.
Good evening. Infinite Campus is our student information system database. It centralized student data such as schedules, attendance, grades, reports, transcripts, behavior fees, health assessments, and contact information. The database does interface with the state for state reporting. Infinite Campus also offers a portal for students and parents, and that's in the website and also a portal app. Accessing portal accounts, student and parent portal accounts are created automatically based on enrollment and guardianship. Students can access their usernames and passwords from school staff, or through the parent portal login, parents will be able to see student usernames and passwords there. The portal offers for you to be able to review attendance, schedules, assignments, and grades. And also we have the annual family update registration application there. The portal app is available, and that seems to be a useful tool for our parents to be able to download on your mobile device. And directions on how to do that are, I included the website address on our district's website there on the slide. And also, if you need any further assistance, you can email portal@thompsonschools.org.
All right, thank you very much. And now we'll talk about media services.
Good evening. I'm Jill Conlon, and I'm your coordinator of digital media literacies for Thompson School District. K-12, we teach information literacy skills, which is the ability for students to find, evaluate, organize, use, and communicate information in all of its various formats. This requires the skills of decision-making, problem solving, or the acquisition of knowledge. We utilize Destiny Library Management System for students and staff to access print books, ebooks, vetted open educational resource databases for reliable information. We also offer Sora app, which contains ebooks and audiobooks for students and staff. From the school library, if a student or staff needs a device, they can go to the library and we check out devices to them. We do offer district digital databases. I'm very excited to share with you that starting October 5th, we have an initiative with the Loveland Public Library called the Student Success Library Initiative. This allows our students access to additional databases and additional ebooks. Digital citizenship for all students is necessary skills to participate fully in their communities and make smart choices in life. What my department vetted a couple of years ago was many resources on digital citizenship, and we came up with Common Sense for Educators. Their URL is the second bullet. This was designed and developed by Project Zero at the Harvard Graduate School of Education. One of the components that we really liked was Common Sense Media for Parents, so that parents, along with us, can talk to their student about making smart choices online in our digital world. Thank you, Matt.
Now we're going to talk about information security on our TSD network and what it's like for students at home.
Thank you, Matt. Good evening, everyone. My name is JD Walker. I'm a network engineer here. I'd like to start out by taking a look at our ITS webpage. Here, you'll find a great set of widely applicable guidelines for being safer on the internet, as well as an overview of some of the steps that Thompson takes to protect user devices and data. The world of internet security is a constantly changing environment, but there are great universal tips on here to help protect ourselves and our data, so I encourage everyone to look through this site. Our list of applications.
Slow down, JD. The translator's got to keep up with you. Go a little slower. JD's a very smart guy, and so he speaks extremely fast, but the translator can't keep up.
Sounds good. Our list of vetted applications is kept up to date on this site as well. You will also see several other categories on the left, such as TSD phishing attacks and examples, which gives our real examples of phishing attacks we've experienced. One of the most important ways to prevent damage from phishing attacks is to know what they look like, so we keep past examples around and update this as new events happen to our users so they can see it. Remember that banks and account holders will never ask you for things like your usernames or passwords in an email. To add to our manual efforts, our email suite has features built in to help protect against phishing. Google uses machine learning to filter out the majority of spam and phishing attempts. They scan email attachments for malware and to help users avoid clicking on malicious links by providing warnings on anything it suspects isn't legitimate. You can take a look at this URL for an example of steps that they take during phishing campaigns to keep email safe. We also have several systems in place to protect against viruses and malware, and it varies depending on which device we're protecting. All computers have antivirus installed and protections to limit who can and can't install software. Inside our network, all of our devices are also protected behind our firewall. The firewall restricts access to our network by limiting the allowed sources and destinations, as well as the types of traffic that come in, while also providing us with the ability to monitor and investigate harmful activity inside and outside our network. This also acts as our primary source of content filtering, both by automatically blocking known inappropriate sites and by allowing us to add additional blocks as new or questionable sites are discovered, which have not been automatically categorized. We use multiple layers of content filtering beyond our firewall, as there is no one tool that can block everything. Jamf and Securely both provide tools that allow us to add some content filtering directly at the device, so they can help block sites even when devices are off our network. A third layer of protection that we use is through our choice of clean browsing as our DNS provider. This really helps catch some of the last few things that fall through the cracks of the other tools. We're going to come back to that in a moment. We've also been changing the way accounts are handled over the last few years. We've removed personally identifying information from usernames and passwords, and we are changing user passwords regularly to reduce the risk of them being abused by others. Our data retention policy has also been changed, so staff and students' computer and email data isn't held after they've moved on from the district. As for what can be done at home to increase security, I would just reiterate that our ITS website has some very valuable tips that can be used in a wide variety of circumstances to help protect yourselves online. There are also a few things you can set up at home to make your network safer. This brings me back to Clean Browsing DNS, because this is a free resource that anyone can use so long as they're able to control which DNS server their home network is using. They have multiple addresses that you can use based on how much filtering you would like, from basic protections against malicious sites to full content filtering and proxy blocks. Many home routers are different, so check your router's manufacturer for instructions on setting up different DNS servers. Some routers and internet providers will also allow you to do content filtering, and it's through their gear. It's best to check with them to see what options they have available. For instance, the link in this presentation is provided by Comcast. This is for filtering their routers. You can find ways to block specific websites, keywords, and computers, as well as set time limits on internet access here. You can also use separate applications such as Bark for monitoring. Their tools allow you to get insight into a wide variety of different applications, devices, and websites. While it can't cover everything, they have worked with many of the more popular applications to make sure they can provide some protection. This is just a brief overview of the steps that you can take in your home, and it's a good idea to stay up to date on what's available and what new threats are out there. Thank you for your time. Back to you, Matt.
Thank you, JD. That ends the formal part of our presentation. We're now going to go into questions and answers. We've looked at the questions that you submitted for us earlier on.
Matt, it looks like you muted yourself.
Thank you. Well, at least the text was going on the side. So hopefully people were able to see what I was saying. But let me reiterate, we do not set up our Chromebooks or our iPads to print from home. And the reason for that is because we do not want to burden our parents with the cost. We don't want to make it unfair because some students don't have printing available. And we don't want to have printing available. And we don't want teachers to be dissuaded from using digital material, which they should be using for online learning. But if you want to print, there is a way. If your student saves their information to their Google Drive, that drive can be logged into on the computer at home that is set up to your home printer. Then you can print that material from there. Again, we do not encourage you to print at home or require it. But if you must, that is the way you can do it. Now let's move on to question number 2. If a student has technical difficulties, who should be contacted to make up work missed and excuse the absence? We know that there are times when a student is not able to log in or when your Wi-Fi just doesn't work. When that happens, well, that's pretty funny. There we go. The translator thought Wi-Fi was wife at first. I didn't want that to say wife doesn't work. It's Wi-Fi doesn't work. All right, so what you would do is you need to contact your teacher first. Let the teacher know you had difficulties and that you would like to be excused from that absence. The teacher will then help you get connected better next time. If you are still having problems, you should call the ITS help desk. I will give you information about how to get technical support in just a few moments. Now let's look at question number 3. How is progress in TCO updated and communicated to students? I'm going to ask our TCO team to answer that question for me.
Hi, Matt. I'm Jason Hanford. I'm the principal, acting principal of TCO. And the progress, as was mentioned a little bit earlier, is updated as students complete work, that those assignments get entered in, and it should update within, usually we allow 24 hours, and that should happen. There are some rare situations right now where that is not updating. That is something that we're in daily communication with Fuel Ed about, and they're working on resolving that. It's a new problem. The teachers are also monitoring students' progress through the grades section of the Fuel Ed platform, and will be in contact with students weekly. As parents, the best way to look at how your student is doing within Fuel Ed is to sit down with them and have a conversation. Ask them to show you the progress in their class and to look at their grades, and you'll get an idea of how they're doing. Just a note, the work that they're doing within Fuel Ed and on TCO will take them as long as the work takes them in a classroom. So if your student's telling you that they're finished after 2 hours, you might want to ask more questions. That might not be the whole truth. So that's one way to stay up to date on their progress. The other important thing to note is that within Fuel Ed, we report progress as a cumulative score. So what that is that would be the score that a student would have in a class if it were to end at that moment, right? So when you look right now and it says that their cumulative score is 25%, that means that they have earned 25% of the possible points for that entire course. It does not mean that they're only earning 25% of each assignment. That information is available to students through the grades tab. We use this because it is a better way of charting progress for online learning. Thank you, Matt.
Okay, and something I wanted to mention earlier is you'll notice there is a link down here at the bottom, and I'm going to leave this slide up for a few moments, because once we're done with our standard questions that came in earlier, we will look at our spreadsheet of questions that have come in during this forum, and we will try to answer those as well. So if you'd still like to ask a question, you can go to the link that you see there on the screen, right there, and you can go ahead and ask a question now. So again, if you have a question to ask, use the link right there. I'll give you a few more moments, and we will address those questions that come in at the last moment once we're done with the ones that came in earlier over the last week. Okay, we were now on number 4. What are some tips for keeping students safe from online predators? I will take that one. This is a tough question. I myself have children, and I know how important it is to parents to keep their children safe from online predators. Some of the advice I have for you is about the applications they use that are not about education. Things like Snapchat, Facebook, Instagram, and the like. Social media mostly, but also texting. You need to stay involved in your students' online life. Don't let them convince you that their accounts only belong to them and that you're not allowed to look at them. I know that you might think, well, I am invading my students' privacy if I look at their accounts. But what's more important? Getting to look at their accounts or protecting them? You need to make sure you can always take a look at their phone or their accounts with them right next to you and take a look at what they're doing online. Applications like Snapchat, for example, do not let you look up history because the images shared disappear after a few seconds. So those kinds of applications are more dangerous than other social media, such as Facebook, where you can look up history. In the end, it's up to the parent to decide how involved they're going to be. But my advice is to stay as involved as possible and to make sure you know all of the logins of all of your students' accounts. I myself, when I allowed my son to have an email account, required that that email account also feed into my phone. So any email he got, I also got, and I could see. I also monitored his social media. We do the best we can in the district to monitor your students' accounts. But in the end, the parent is the best source because they know their student the most. Okay, now let's talk about question number 5. How can parents get Google Classroom updates about assignments? In Google Classroom, there's something called the Guardian feature. That is where Guardian emails are set up by the teacher for the teacher to send notices to the guardians about how their student is doing on various assignments and if their assignments have been turned in on time. If you are not getting any notices from Google Classroom, please contact that teacher and ask them to send notices to guardians. The feature is there, but maybe they're not using it at the moment. Just ask them to do so, and ITS will teach them if needed. Now let's take a look at number 6. How can families get advisement if they need internet at home? I'm about to show you how to get tech support in a few moments. Our tech support team has a number of options available to assist families with internet connection. We are also working on a couple more options that should come online in the next 2 months. So if you are having difficulty or have had difficulty in the past, give us a call and we will try to assist you. Some of the programs are quite inexpensive, such as the Comcast Internet Essentials program, which is only $9.95 per month. Number 7, for families who choose to purchase Chromebook Insurance, how do they use it if there is a claim? How do families sign up for it? Just yesterday, a newsletter was sent home to all families from the school district. It contains the information about how to get the optional insurance on Chromebooks. You do not need to buy this insurance if you have an iPad. They are warranted in a different way through their case. We do not have that option on Chromebooks, so that's why we are offering the optional insurance for families to cover damages and losses. If you have the insurance and a damage or loss occurs, just call our tech support team and we will coach you through how to make the claim so that the cost is on the insurance and not on you. Number 8, how can a student or family get a tutorial on how to use Buzz? I will ask the TCO team to answer that question for you.
Hello, we did mention earlier that we have a Thompson Connect online website, and it contains some basic overviews and tutorials along with example information from the vendor that you can walk through example lessons and see the navigation. The teachers have also been creating and producing examples of how to go through the navigation. From the home screen, there's a dashboard with a to-do list, activities, and access to grades. For each card that you see on the main page, you can click on those to enter your different courses. You can check your progress that way as well. And so in that way, I think the layout is fairly simple once you have practiced a few times and used the Getting Started module that's at the beginning of each lesson. Course.
Thank you. Next, we'll take a look at question number 9. What restrictions are placed on YouTube for student devices? We do allow YouTube because there are many educational videos on YouTube. However, we utilize a restriction that Google only gives school districts that limits the type of content on YouTube available to student accounts. If a teacher wants to use a YouTube video, they have to first view the video and click a little button that approves it. If it becomes approved, then students are able to see that video as well. This way, we have teachers vet the videos before they are approved, and the system becomes more intelligent about what kinds of content we will allow. It is not a perfect system. Sometimes a video gets through that we would rather have not, but it does filter out most of the content that we don't want students to see. Now let's take a look at question number 10. If a student device has a hardware issue that needs to be fixed, how do we get it fixed? Where do we take it to get fixed? Student devices sometimes break down, and when they do, they need to be fixed by a technician inside the school district. If you need your device fixed, contact technical support, which I will show you the contact information for in just a moment, and set up an appointment to drop off your device. We will give you another one in its place, so your student won't go without a device. We'll fix it, clean it, and give it to another student at another time, so you don't even have to come back to get the one that you turned in to be repaired. This way, everybody stays safe. And now let's take a look at question 11. Should students keep their devices issued to them when in-person learning starts back up? What about at charter schools? The answer to this is dependent on the school they go to. At certain schools, they will be turning in their device because they will be getting an upgrade of another device. While at some schools, they will keep their device just in case something happens where online learning has to be called again. Charter schools issue their own devices, and only their devices should be used by charter school students. If you have a Thompson School District device, you should not be using it if you are going to a charter school. It should be turned back into the district, and you should check out a device from the charter school. Now let's take a look at technical support. After we talk about technical support, remember you can still ask a question at the link I gave you earlier, and we will take a look at those in the few moments that remain. For technical support, you can see their phone number at the top, and that we are open Monday through Friday from 8 o'clock to 4 o'clock. The first person you should speak to, let me get the translator going again. The first person you should speak to for technical support is your teacher. They can give you advice for many small problems, such as logging in, or what the assignment is and how to turn it in, or just looking up a password. If you have questions about how the software works that they've assigned you to use, you should ask the teacher. If you have questions about workload or curriculum, or the progress, or your due dates, all of those are teacher questions. Our help desk technicians will not know the answers to those questions. But if you have asked your teacher for assistance and they cannot help you because it is too technical, you should call the help desk. Contact the help desk if you're having problems getting hardware or software to work, if you need advisement about getting connected to the internet, if you need a new or replacement device, or if you need to turn one in to be repaired, or if you're concerned about security issues, like you think maybe your student's account has been compromised or they've given away their password and it needs to be changed. There are many other reasons you might call the help desk, but remember, talk to your teacher for the easier stuff so that the help desk can stay concentrated on the harder problems. Now I'm going to end the presentation display so that I can collaborate with my colleagues and answer any questions that may have come in during the actual presentation. So give me just a moment here. All right, we're looking at our question sheet now, and we have a couple of questions that have come in. One is Jamf School just for district devices? The answer to that is yes, it is. It is a enterprise software. Enterprise software means that it's used for very large scale management of devices. It manages thousands of iPads and MacBook laptops. So it is something that only large businesses or school districts use. Next, we have, I have two students using TCO. One of my daughters has access to the progress bar and the other does not. Why does some, let's see here, hold on just a second. Okay, so one of my daughters has access to the progress bar and the other does not. Why do some students have this feature while others don't? How long until this issue will be fixed? Can the TCO team jump in and try to answer that question for us?
Sure, Matt. So as we mentioned earlier, there is a problem currently going on within Fuel Ed or Peak, and we are in daily conversation with them. Because this is a problem outside of our control, we cannot say when it will be fixed. I just know that in the years that we've been using Fuel Ed, this is the first time that we've ever experienced this problem. And they are a bit puzzled by it themselves, but they are working on it, and we hope to have a solution soon.
Thank you, Jason. And I just saw that one of my colleagues, Don Cochran, has mentioned that there is a version of JAMP software called JAMP Parent that will be introduced later this year. So when the question was asked, is it only for the school district? It is only for the school district to purchase and manage, but we will be releasing a portion of it to parents to help them help their students through JAMP Parent. It's not available yet, but it will be soon. Okay, let me see if any other questions have come in. All right, that was our last question that came in during the forum. So I'm now going to show my screen. There we are. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today in the Technology Community Forum. We hope that we've been able to answer some of your questions. And remember, you can always call us on the ITS Help Desk line, and we'll answer your specific questions, things about just your student's computer or just your particular situation. Again, my name is Matt Kuhn. I'm the Chief Technology Officer, and I'd be glad to talk with any of you through email or through the phone and answer any other questions you may have. But now I'm going to go ahead and adjourn our forum and say goodbye. Thank you very much. This ends our forum.